back to keeping score. We've had a bit of a hiatus, but we're back and we're back with a bang. Today we'll be talking about Manchester United and as to whether Ole should stay on at the wheel or not. So I think without delaying more, I'm going to put it out there to Muhammad Ali. What's gone wrong at United and what do they do now?
I'm going to start out with a very famous song that I think a lot of people are familiar with. Sacked in the morning, sacked in the morning. So that's basically what I feel about Ole and his current predicament at Manchester United. I think if you're asking me why it's happening, there's a multitude of reasons. I think United fans will point towards the fact that the board have been all over the place, and to a certain extent the financial person is also handling your transfer activity for the last several years.
True, yeah.
And it shows in the way that the team has been constructed. Plus it also, I can sort of understand where they're coming from in the way that a lot of them argue that the team keeps being constructed for a particular manager, then that managers let go, then a new manager comes in and then they scrap that entire philosophy, go for someone completely different, try something new, throw a lot of money, doesn't work. All well and good, I get that. But the kind of players that you've still got at United, the players that he has at his disposal, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is one game and a few results away from being in the bottom three next game week. And that's how bad the situation has become at United.
Yeah.
My bigger concern is not the fact that the squad was not able to buy a lot of very good players in the transfer market, or that, who can they bring in January to improve things. My concern is that under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the level of performances have been so poor at United. I mean, I sat through the Arsenal United game. I hated myself for doing it. It wasn't worth it. I sat through the Newcastle United game. It was awful. I have watched a lot of games with United. Hell, even the 4-0 win that United had over Chelsea, I thought for large parts of that game, they were anonymous. And then we were very wide open and susceptible to the counter. They had a couple of fast players and they had a particularly efficient day in front of goal. But they haven't been able to repeat that feat because nobody has played that openly again in the Premier League.
Exactly.
And when teams do not play openly, and even if they play a balanced style, let alone a low block style, United struggle to create a lot of chances. And my problem with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is that he goes into the press conference afterwards when his team has had 2 shots on target, both of them from long range, and he says we need to be more efficient. When in fact the system that he's playing, the way that he's playing his players, they're not creating enough chances, and they've spent 80 million on Maguire, but they still end up conceding a goal or two every game. Nothing's really changed, and I think the biggest indictment for Solskjaer is that David De Gea almost cried last time in the post-match interview. I think
really
you saw that one.
Yeah, everybody sort of really felt bad for him.
And I think the thing is, the key word that I would take out of that little press snippet of his was, he says, nobody seems to know what the hell is going on. Like, he can't tell you what the problem is.
He doesn't know what.
Because there are so many problems. And I think when there are so many different problems, it means the problem may not be with the squad, but with the guy who's running the squad. And I think Solskjaer needs to go.
Alright, yeah, I think I sort of agree with you on the fact that, yeah, Solskjaer does not seem to know what's happening. And as you mentioned, De Gea's press sort of post-match conference, and he basically said, he was asked, what do you think went wrong? And his answer was everything. And I think that's what's wrong, and it's not just on the field. As you mentioned, they've been, like if you look at the last 4 or 5 years for transfer windows, they've been buying the very different sort of players.
Yeah.
Initially under Van Gaal and Mourinho, they were buying sort of made-to-order, ready-made superstars, Lin, Matic, in Sanchez, who they thought were going to immediately give them success. That didn't work. And instead of realizing, okay, what's wrong with the player, and they changed the strategy completely. They went, okay, we're going to get rid of all these guys, and we're going to sort of rely completely on the youth.
On Dan James,
On Dan James,
and these kinds of transfer
exactly.
targets.
And then they started, they gave Marcus Rashford a massive contract and basically decided, we don't care if Lukaku's gone, he scored 12 goals last season, so we're going to make sure that Rashford gets us those. And that really hasn't, you can't really see that happening this season. Rashford is a very good player, but I don't see of him as a clear out and out striker. There's a massive reliance on Pogba, and if Pogba's not performing, the team's not doing anything, and we can see all of that. They have had 9 goals in the last 8 games, 4 of which came against Chelsea. So last 7 games they've scored five goals. That's a horrible result to it, and they've conceded 8. So and 2 of them have come through penalties. So
absolutely, and a lot of the fans are hoping against hope that Anthony Martial comes back into the side and things are going to be different because he's performing well. But at the same time, I mean, it's a bit of an indictment on the way that they've constructed the squad again. That they went out and spent £80 million on Harry Maguire, but the only backup they've got to an eventuality where Rashford and Martial get injured, like one of them is a player, Mason Greenwood, who is a 17-year-old, really talented 17-year-old. That's where he's at. Same for Angel Gomez, Tahith Chong. People compare these youngsters to their counterparts at Chelsea, but there's a big difference in the level of games that those guys have played at the highest level. So Gomez, Chong, these guys, they've not had a lot of minutes in even the Championship, let alone the Premier League. So you can't rely on them right now to come in and give a regular good account of themselves. McTominay's given a decent account of himself, but again, if you're playing a midfield with McTominay, Pogba, Lingard on a good day, maybe Matic, there's not a lot of creativity there.
No. I just think that we realize that there are a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And my question with all of this is getting rid of Ole right now, who are they going to get? First off, who's the manager that they can bring in? And secondly, how and if is it even possible for that manager to bring them out of this sort of mess that they're right now in?
So before I get into what I believe could be the solutions to the problems, I need to track back a little bit because I've talked about the problems with the playing structure that's there, the transfer market, the board. It seems to shy away from the Solskjaer question, which is Solskjaer to play him significantly enough for this problem for him to be sacked? First things first, I think in my opinion, one of the things that I think makes any good manager, is essential for any good manager when he's doing good at a club, is if the players generally, the ones that he is playing, are playing well or are improving, or there is at least a certain number of players that are showing signs of improvement. I think the biggest problem with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is that I think everybody, even the good players at United, have regressed under him. And Lukaku and Sanchez obviously were victims of his methods and they left. And to be fair, they weren't performing the best, but then they left. Mata now he's been struggling for a few seasons, but he seems totally useless now. Pogba's regressed into a shell. He's not looking good. The backline doesn't look good. De Gea doesn't look any better than he did last season. Rashford, Martial to some extent when he was playing strikers, playing decently, but they're not setting the world alight. So it doesn't appear as though Solskjaer is having any positive impact on the team. And to be fair, the precedent that he has in terms of the kind of CV that he had coming into the job, there was nothing in that CV to suggest that he had anything that could suggest that he would do really well at this job.
Cardiff and Moyes are not really...
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, there was that great initial run, first 6-7 games, and that's that. And then after that, even last season, you could see United spiraling, and this season he had a full pre-season, a full transfer market. People will argue he wasn't backed, but I mean, I'm not...
I think they spent over 100 million.
They did, and then United fans will still argue, well, they should have gotten him maybe 3-4 other world-class players, because they're used to that kind of profligacy, right? But I mean, there's other teams in the league, and I don't want to keep comparing them to Chelsea, but even Liverpool, right, didn't spend a lot in the market. Chelsea certainly, their squad got disbanded, they still didn't spend in the market.
Exactly.
Threw in a couple of guys that had no Premier League experience, they're doing well. Manuel Pellegrini is doing really well with West Ham United.
Exactly.
But at the same time, Everton spent a lot of money, but are not doing well. So
it's not really about how much you spend, it's about the players that you get.
It's not like United have bad players, and it's certainly not like United have players that are so bad that they can't beat Newcastle, who happened to lose 5-0 the previous week to Leicester, or that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer can't mastermind an away win in 13 tries. So, I think it's more than just the players at their disposal. I don't think they're as bad as the results are going to look out. So, that's why I feel Solskjaer has to go. To your question, who can they bring in? My personal choice, obviously, is the tried and tested method of Max Allegri. He would be my first pick. If they could get him, that'd be fantastic. I wouldn't go down the Jose Mourinho route again. I wouldn't go down the ex-player route again, because frankly speaking, I don't think there's any United player right now who's doing anything in management. So I think it's a tricky question, yes. Would Allegri want to come at this stage? I'm not sure. Would the club, the way that they're going about things in the market, whoever you bring, would they perhaps have the same problems? That's a debatable question. I'll put that to you.
Yeah, well, that's the biggest thing that bothers me, is that who do they bring in? And obviously the first obvious answer is Allegri. And Mourinho, I don't think Mourinho is really an honest option for United, because I don't think he's going to come back.
Yeah.
He has too much pride in him to really go back anywhere. So it's not him. And then again, who else is there? Like Gary Neville is the only ex-player that
There's
has dabbled in
talks of
management.
Nicky Butt, I think, but
He's
I think
definitely
again-
talented, but not really someone you want to bring into the pressure cauldron that is the United manager seat right now. So I don't think Nicky Butt should be tested. It's the same thing as Ole was tested and it hasn't worked. So with the first question is let's look at Allegri and whether right now, let's say tomorrow Allegri comes in, walks into the manager of the team, what does he see? He sees in David Gea as a sort of world-class goalkeeper. He has Paul Pogba. He
he's
has
got a decent
he has
backline.
got a decent back line, especially with Van Bissaka, and he's got certain players in Juan Mata, in Matic, in even Rashford to an extent,
Fred.
and Martial and Fred, that he can definitely work with in his system.
I know.
And that's something that you can see positives with Allegri coming in, but I for one, it's a sad day for United fans, is that for once there is actually doubt in the fact that do world class managers now want to come to United or not. This is a question that Chelsea sort of suffered for a little bit because of the firing that they did, but that's what United been doing as well. They've gotten rid of so many managers that never really gave them a full chance to play on.
And I agree with you there, and I think that Gary Neville was also alluding to a similar point back in his recent interview, where he said that a lot of the problems come from the board constantly hiring and firing managers, and the word that he used was that they're basically hiring the wrong kinds of managers that aren't good fits for United, and then they end up firing them. And that's my thing. There's a lot of United fans that are arguing that the reason that we should stick with Ole is that we shouldn't be, supporting this hiring and firing culture. I'm personally against that idea for the sole reason that I think it's important to have stability at a club. I, for one, am advocating it for the right manager at Chelsea for the longest time, and I was that way for Conte for the longest part. I wouldn't have minded had Sarri stuck on as well. But the point is, it has to be the right guy.
Manager.
So if you had Antonio Conte right now and results were a little sticky, given his kind of precedent that he's got, I'd have said stick with him. The moment he changes to the back three, you're going to end up winning the title probably. So, you've got to back the right horse. But at the same time, that's the thing, United have to be smart about it. If they bring Allegri in, they have to give him assurances that they're going to back him properly and they're going to give him a chance. And same for any good manager that they bring in. But they have to avoid the temptation of sacking Solskjaer, replacing him with Nicky Butt, and then going into the next situation and just hiring whoever they think is.
The first name that comes up, because that's going to be a bad cycle that's going to keep continuing on for them. So I think that's where my issue sort of starts as well, is that I don't totally agree with you on the fact that it is just Ole's. Ole is at fault. Yes, a lot of these players, like you mentioned, are not performing at the level that they usually did, like including Pogba and De Gea, and Martial to an extent as well. But if you really look at the other players in the team, if you look at the stats, because some of these stats go before Ole started, in Marcus Rashford, and this was a decision that maybe Ole took, maybe the upper management took, in the fact that they decided that they're going to give Rashford as the main striker. If you look at Rashford's record, I think there's like 120 matches he scored about 20 goals in over 5 seasons. A lot of people say, he's young. And Mourinho sort of mentioned, he said, he's young, he's 21, but he's been playing for 5 seasons. He's played 120 games for United and he scored about 20 goals. And for an out-and-out striker, a lot of times he was playing on the wing. Even with someone on the wing, the end result is not enough.
I think somebody has to be held accountable for making the decision to put all your eggs in the Pogba Martial basket, right? Whether if it was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer or if it was Edward Wood, whoever it was has to come out and say, well, we made a mistake. And it seems as though they're doing that because I think 3 games into the season, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer realized that they need another striker, and they tried on deadline day to get Mandzukic and a few other names. There's more links coming in January, and you might see United sign a striker in January. So I think whoever it is has admitted the fact that this was a mistake. And there's no questions that there have been problems in squad building. But at the same time, you've managed to alienate guys like Nemanja Matic and Juan Mata, who are people who had the ability to contribute to your team. I think you jumped the gun by maybe making that sale for Lukaku. A lot of people say, well, these are guys that no longer want to play for the United shirt. And you've got Pogba also who says he doesn't want to play in the United shirt. But frankly speaking, you don't have anybody in that squad right now that like bleeds red or like at least anybody with a certain amount of quality that bleeds red.
Yeah, that's
right?
so true, because that was another thing that I sort of saw, and that's something that you're used to seeing in a United team, is that even when they're down and they're not doing so well, you have that mentality of just going head on. You know, we grew up watching the United team in Fergie time go with like 10 players playing all ahead,
Absolutely.
crosses coming from all over the place, and players like Rooney doing everything on the pitch to get that win. I don't see a single player that's willing to do that. Even the young ones, even Jesse Lingard, even
I think
Rashford.
it comes back to the same thing, that these are traits that are oftentimes inculcated by the manager.
Yeah.
When Ferguson took over at United, there weren't a lot of players from international waters, for example, that when he took over that club would have said, I want to play for United. So, for example, if they had tried for Ronaldo maybe when Ferguson took over in 1988, he might have said no to them because he would have thought, well, you know, this club is a bunch of rundown has-beens. Their best player is Gordon Strachan, who's in his 30s, and you know, like he had to create that image of the club. He created a certain ethos and he set certain standards, and the players abided by them, and then they were successful. And when they were successful and they were regularly competing in Europe as well and regularly winning titles, they became an attractive club where big players could come, world-class players, and feel like they were a part of the club and its identity, and they wanted to be part of that, and they wanted to wear the red shirt proudly. Right now, I am sorry, no matter which big quality, good quality player, you can go for a Dan James in the Championship, he'll be excited to play for United. But there is a limit to which he can contribute.
True.
You can pick up Sean Longstaff, he might be good in the long run in the future, and you might say, we can pick up a lot of these young guns, try and rebuild the team. But if you expect any sort of world-class player to start doing well at your club, you need to have a manager that they can respect and look up to. You need to have a structure where they feel comfortable, because you have the money to theoretically buy whoever you want. But if you want them to stick, you need to create a system where you're consistently challenging at the top. If you're a Europa League team, every season, no matter what you say, and you're having these kinds of problems where your managers are in the press conference constantly hounding your players, or if the media is constantly creating negativity. In Pogba's case, it is constant scrutiny of every single one of his touches by the fans and by the media. He is obviously not going to say, I bleed red and I'm going to see through this, playing for a United team in 12th in the league and no shot at the Champions League the way things are looking. Obviously he's going to say, I want to leave. Same for Lukaku. You didn't create a good environment for him. He wasn't happy there. So he left. You got to make your players feel happy if you want to see loyalty.
That's so true. And yeah, I guess the buck stops at Ole, and that's how it's been in football. But for one, I think yes, Ole is to blame, but right now it's just 9 games, 8 games in. It's too early to call on that. I would at least sort of see out till December, and just before the window opens, maybe figure out if there is somebody coming up. But if there is not any, like you said, if there's not a proper manager that can come in, stick with Oli, stick with what you have, and try to straight out the season.
But I'm going to disagree with that slightly, and my reason for doing so is right now, I feel if I were in the United board, I would probably be sniffing around the Pochettino situation at Spurs, seeing if there is a way for him to be prized away right now, given the kind of problems there are. Maybe Spurs might be in a position where they might feel, okay, if we get a good enough offer from United, this might as well be a good time for us to get rid of Pochettino as well. That's something to look at. Max Allegri is available. There's a ton of other managers that they could theoretically throw money at and try and get out of there. I'm looking at Lucien Favre at Dortmund as well. And there's Ajax's current manager as well. So there are guys out there that theoretically could be available. I'd be throwing feelers out to them, primarily because I understand it's early on, there's 9 games, a lot could change. But I think that if United had been unlucky, in these games, as opposed to performing poorly, I would have said, well, yeah, these are results that will change over time. Only you can see a direction he's going there. They're going to struggle initially, but they'll get somewhere good. So we give Ole some time. But this is how Ole is setting out his style to play, the way that they're playing right now, and it's not working. And he doesn't seem to have an answer to that, and the players don't seem to have an idea about it. So, for example, with Lampard and Chelsea right now, you can tell what the problems are. We are struggling defensively, we are struggling on set pieces, but there's a ton of positives, and you can clearly identify the mistakes and you can work on them. With Liverpool initially, it was the same. With City in their first season under Pep Guardiola, they had a soft centre, and they knew how they could fix it, but at the same time, the team gradually, game by game, was putting on decent performances and was improving. I don't see that with Solskjaer. Therefore, I don't buy the idea that if you give him another 6 months, things will fix themselves, because you need to take some sort of positive action.
I think there can be positive action, but if there is any sort of positive action, would there be positive action if they don't get any of the managers that you mentioned in Pochettino, in Allegri, in Favre, or any of these, and they end up with I don't know, Steven Gerrard or like Nicky Butt or something?
I think the good news for United fans in that instance is that the players seem to have enough quality to be able to put up a good run of wins when they're out of a stream of negativity, because clearly that's what happened to Solskjaer.
Exactly.
They got a few results out of sheer, like, I guess, whatever it was that caused it initially to happen. So maybe a change in manager might be good in the short term for them. But I understand your point. I think the biggest question mark right now is who do you bring in?
And I think there's a big hole where I don't really have a great answer to that.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where we should sort of stop this. And I think we've reached a consensus that there are big problems at United. Ole is to blame too for some of them. And
the board as well.
And the board as well, but you can't really get rid of the board. So Ole is the one that takes responsibility in terms of footballing terms.
Yeah.
So and that's how it is. That's how modern football is now. So Ole probably, as far as I see, will be leaving. I put my bet on mid-November. I think that's going to be the extent of his tenure.
I think United could stick till the end of the season, provided they're not in a relegation battle, and perhaps United can get through this season, get a respectable finish, even if it's not the top four, and then maybe build on it next season, get a good manager in. And as much as people are talking about culling the players that are not good enough or not bleed red for United or whatever, I'll just say that oftentimes there's some really good players that are being overlooked by certain managers, and other managers come in and they do well. So I would not write off a lot of the players that are underperforming right now, because if you really look at the United squad, I don't think there's any player that's really performing well. So if you start culling the deadwood, you might end up having nobody in the squad to play. So yeah.
Alright then.
With that, thank you so much.
I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Sorry about the hiatus. We'll be back with consistent videos coming up. There's going to be one on Tottenham really soon as well, and what's happening there. Thank you so much. Hope you guys have a great day.